Hello, in this video, we shall be discussing retirement and the corpus which is required to make your retirement relatively carefree, at least on the monetary side. Let's get started. The approach which we discuss is called FIRE, which stands for Financial Independence and Retire Early. It has different tenets which are there. Financial independence, being financial independent to pursue your interests, retiring early. You have enough savings, now you can pursue your hobbies and you can retire, and which means that you don't have to actively work. But at the same time, this retirement early does not mean that you relax and you don't do anything. You still try to do some side hustles which are like your hobbies, which are still generating you some money. So side hustles or some ways of generating a passive income is also very important in this fire concept. Investing, as the name says, when you save your money, it should be invested. Otherwise, it would be losing its value due to inflation. Frugality is living within your means, meaning that you don't have to be miser, but what you have to do is you have to create your own budget and live within your means. So these tenets are very important for the fire and to ensure that you are able to sustain a good life post your retirement. So the key concepts: inflation, as you may already be knowing, is the rate at which the prices of goods and services rise. So what happens is, whatever you are able to take it in, let's say, 100 rupees or a $1 today, let's say after a year, if 5% is the rate of inflation, you have to pay 105 rupees for the same good or the same service. So that is what is inflation. Compounding is a concept that defines that the investment earns interest and your interest is also accumulating interest for you. So if you have deposited 100 at a rate of 10%, after the first year it becomes 110. Then again you get a 10% again on this. So 10% of 11, first you got 10% which was a 10% and it became 110. Again you get a 10% which is a 11. So next year it becomes 121. And then again you get a 10% and which would be like 12.1. Okay, and so on. And it's a very important concept and it leads to generation of wealth. So there are 3 steps to the fire approach. The first step is to save 25 times of your annual expenditure in any investment. Let's say, for example, in a bank, the retiree is withdrawing 4% of corpus annually. That is the second step. The third thing is that this money which is saved in the bank is able to generate 4% of interest annually. So this approach, what it shall mean is that your corpus would remain the same. You would withdraw 4% and 4% would be accumulated. Thereby, at the end, like when the real end comes for you, you still have the corpus intact which your offspring can use. Now there are some things like inflation, emergencies, those scenarios are not covered, and thereby I would show you this in details in an Excel and make those things very clear and how those things can be taken care of. Let's see the Excel. Let's see the whole thing in action now. So we have considered a rate of inflation as 4%. Let's say that your monthly expenses which we required today is 40,000. This is in INR and you can adjust your currency likewise. I would put the spreadsheet on the description. So if 40,000 is your monthly expenses, then annual amount would be 12 into 40,000, which is 480,000. You need to retire after 10 years. If you have to retire after 10 years, then this is not the amount which you require. You require the value of this 10 years from now, which is this much. And how I arrived, this is again compounding. So compounding makes 480,000 at a rate of 4% to be around 700k. So that is the amount which you shall be requiring at the time of your retirement, giving these assumptions. What we discussed was that we need to create a retirement corpus, and the corpus would be 25 times the annual expenses. So this is the annual expenses which we arrived at, and if I multiply it by 25, this is the amount which I get. And yearly, how much I would be withdrawing? I shall be withdrawing 4% of this. This is the first scenario. In this first scenario, what we see is that we need a corpus which is indicated here. And what we are saying is that we are withdrawing 4% from the corpus. So every time we are withdrawing 4%, and this 4% we are able to last forever because we are always withdrawing 4%, and we are assuming that our corpus which is kept in the bank is generating a 4% interest for us. So thereby the corpus would be left for your offspring once you leave the world. So that is what is indicated here, that the same money would be there forever, because 4% what you withdraw is the same amount of interest which you get from your investment vehicle. Now, this is not a very realistic scenario because inflation won't be zero, and the corpus interest also won't be same as 4%. So for that reason, what I have done is I have created a second scenario. So what is happening here is the same annual expenditure which is required, but now what I'm considering is that there is an inflation which is reflected here, 4%. So first year this is what I required. Next year I require 4% more, which is like 738,000 is what I require. Next year again 4% on this. So continuously I keep on increasing my money requirement year on year. Okay, and this chart is prepared for, let's say, 80 years. So I keep on increasing my investment, but because my corpus is earning 8%, so which means that I am able to, once I get 8% on my corpus and I withdraw the money which is required for my sustenance, I'm still able to, because corpus is also growing at a 8% rate, I'm able to save considerably good amount of money. Now let's say that I inflation is 4%. Let's say I am able to earn 4% only on my corpus. So which means inflation and the interest earned are same. So in that case, what is going to happen is that the 26th year or the 27th year, the money is over. So I have zero money left for me on the 27th year because all the expenditures have dried up my money. So that's what is happening here. It has become zero here. So in an ideal world, the food inflation would be 3 to 4%. So goods may be little more. So considering a 3% and a 5%, let's say a 5% interest earned on a corpus, with this calculation, we are able to see that we are able to sustain for 37 years. And here, what happens is that there is nothing which is left for your offspring. Everything is a zero here. It is going to negative, means that the account is closed now. So the last thing which I want to focus here is this point which I have mentioned here, that we have not considered any emergencies. So whatever is being considered here is the constant expenditure every month. But there may be some emergencies, so it is advised that you would be having a medical insurance plus a emergency fund which would be separate from your retirement fund. Thank you very much.